An Ebola epidemic broke out in West Africa in 2014. At a time of crisis, the Chinese government and people stood firmly together with people of West African countries in facing the crisis. In early August 2014, President Xi Jinping, at first time, sent his condolences to the presidents of Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone and offered China support in combating Ebola in these countries. President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Keqiang also called on the international community to actively provide assistance to West Africa at multiple bilateral and multilateral occasions. Vice Premier Liu Yandong called a number of meetings with the specific theme of discussing and deploying work of assisting West African countries and fighting against the Ebola.
I met twice and discussed this Ebola with President Xi Jinping. China was one of the first countries who have dispatched all this logistical support, equipment, medical equipment.
We are very happy with getting this positive reaction from our friends from the government of the People's Republic of China.
19 members of Chinese medical team to Guinea who have worked in the country for over 2 years did not leave, continuing performing their duty on the ground. They were later reinforced by over 1,200 Chinese medical workers and public health specialists who were sent by the Chinese government to West African countries affected by Ebola. In September 2014, China delivered a third-level mobile biosafety lab to Sierra Leone by a large cargo plane. In just 3 months, a permanent third-level biosafety lab was established.
With this brilliant results that the Chinese have in the EQA, they have gained the trust of the Ministry of Health and Sanitation.
The China-Sierra Leone Friendship Hospital, which was a project of foreign aid by China, was converted to an EPHF observation and treatment center. Around 900 people stayed there for observation and treatment. This 9-year-old girl's name is Yayoma. Her mother was infected with Ebola and died. She was sent here for observation and treatment. The Chinese doctors took precious good care of her, as if she was their own child. Shortly after her recovered from the disease and discharged, she returned to the center to call on the Chinese doctors because she missed them so much. It took China less than a month to construct an Ebola treatment unit for Liberia. Celestine King used to be the national champion of table tennis of Liberia. Unfortunately, she got infected with the Ebola virus. The Chinese doctors made every endeavor to provide her with good care and treated her with a specially designed plan. She was saved at last.
Very excited. I'm so happy to be out.
Chinese medical workers accumulatively admitted 174 patients in Liberia. China sent close to 100 public health specialists to Ebola-affected countries for conducting training for public health trainers.
I highly appreciate the new thing that have been brought into our life when it comes to the usefulness of hygiene, for the safety of our life.
China has so far provided West Africa with 4 rounds of aid worth $120 million in cash, food, disease prevention and control materials, benefiting the 3 Ebola-affected countries and other 10 surrounding countries.
China is the first country that sent to us even before actual outbreak, because when the outbreak was announced in the neighboring countries, we were in a state of preparedness.
It's when you are down and out, when you are in trouble, when you face hardships, and that person stays with you and comes to you, you really know that that person is a true friend. Thank you so much.
President Xi Jinping and President Obama reached important consensus on strengthening efforts to combat Ebola during the APEC summit meeting in Beijing. Leaders of China and US actively called on the international community to work in union in the fight against Ebola, posing a good gesture in working together to address global challenges. The two countries share real-time information on developments of Ebola pandemic as well as technical specifications and guidelines. Doctors of CDC from both countries had teleconferences to discuss measures to be taken for the next step. The US CDC provided China with detection reagent, probes, and primer, and was involved in training for Chinese laboratory technicians. On ground in West Africa, medical workers from both countries fought side by side. In Liberia, the Chinese training sapper company gave support to the construction of a hospital aided by US, while the US provided great support for China in transporting materials for building an ATU in Liberia. In Sierra Leone, CDC experts from the two countries exchanged visits to each other's laboratories and shared experiences on disease prevention and control. Representatives of the two countries conducted multiple consultations during occasions like the World Health Assembly and the Global Health Security Agenda high-level meeting to discuss how to fight against Ebola in a collective way. China is willing to join hands with the US by making full play of each other's complementing advantages to support the public health development in Africa in post-Ebola time. With endeavors by countries affected by Ebola, support from the United Nations, the World Health Organization, the African Union, and many countries, including China and the US, the Ebola outbreak in West Africa has been alleviated greatly. The Chinese government solemnly commits itself to fulfilling the responsibilities of a large developing country and will continue to deliver assistance in its power to countries affected by the pandemic. At the same time, China will focus its attention on post-Ebola time and help African countries to construct their own health security systems. Let us join our hands together to build a common global health security curtain and make active contributions to the health and well-being of the whole mankind.